So, first I will just do the recap of the linear algebra part. Okay. The first thing that we did was we defined vectors and we defined vector spaces, right. So, vectors is just ordered set of numbers, and vector spaces are basically spaces that consist of vectors as well as the rules for addition and scalar multiplication of those vectors, and we went over all of those rules. And really what kind of is important takeaway from that is the linearity implies superposition. What basically that means is when you have let us say vectors x and y, if you have alpha multiplied by x plus y, it is equal to alpha x plus alpha y, which is also equal to alpha y plus alpha x. If you have a function, a linear function f of ax plus by, then that is also equal to a multiplied by f of x plus b multiplied by f of y, and all those things we talked about with respect to linearity. The last part is not in the definition of vector space, that is the definition of a linear function. The linear function, though, we showed that, or we said that it will be can be expressed as a matrix multiplication, okay. And that is where we introduced our matrix. Our matrix we introduced as a way to do linear operations. And how do we think about a multiplication a multiplied by u? It is nothing but it is a linear combination of the column vectors, okay. So, what we meant by that is a multiplied by u bar is going to be nothing but u1 okay. So, this is a linear combination of the column vectors, okay. And if you have a linear operation, that can be represented as a matrix multiplication, okay. And this matrix multiplication transforms from, or does the transformation, or does the operation from an input space of which is an p dimensional input space to an n dimensional output space, okay. Then we talked about null spaces and image spaces. Image space is also known as column space. So, if you look at this particular linear combination, okay, and you consider for all possible u1 to up values, then the entire span of those vectors becomes the image space. And then we took certain examples, and then we said that the image space is a subspace of the output space or subspace of the codomain space, okay. Then we talked about the null space as well. So, if your matrix A is an n by n matrix which has full rank, then your null space is just going to be origin. But if that is not the case, if it does not, if the rank of the matrix A is less than p, then you will have some null space in your entire system, okay. And then we took an example of what that null space meant, okay. The example that we took was of a blending system, where if you were going to mix two streams which have the same purity, if you mix two streams which have the same purity, then the image space is only the height, because height is the only thing that you will be able to control, okay. Well, control is a wrong word over here, but height is the only thing that you will be able to change based by changing the inputs. What was the null space in that case? The null space was f1 minus f2. What that meant is, if you increase f1 by 10 and simultaneously you decrease f2 by 10, you are neither going to change the height nor are you going to change the purity in that particular example, okay. The other example, or the previous example that we took again for the blending system, is when A matrix was a 2 by 2 matrix and its rank was 2. In that case, the null space was just origin, which means that no matter where you are in your input space, you will get to certain output. So, for example, plus 10 minus 10 would of course means no change in the volume. Although there is no change in the volume, there will be a change in the purity, if the purity of the stream 1 and stream 2 are different. Okay. So, that is the thing that we talked about. Then we talked about singular value decomposition. The idea is that any matrix A can be represented as U sigma. I do not know if I used sigma or S, but that is okay. Okay, V transpose. Okay. U and V are orthonormal or sorry orthogonal vectors, orthogonal matrices. What orthogonal matrices means is that each of those column vectors are orthonormal to each other. Okay. And sigma has, so let us say we have a 2 by 2 system, then sigma is going to be sigma 1, sigma 2, 0, 0. If it is let us say 2 by 3 system, then it is going to be sigma 1, sigma 2, 0, 0, 0, 0. If it is 3 by 2 system, for example, it is going to be sigma 1, sigma 2, 0, 0, 0, 0. Okay. If let us say sigma 2 was equal to 0, okay, then you have your right. This particular guy spans the null space. Okay. What that means is, if you take any point along V2 bar, okay, then when you multiply it with this particular guy, it will become 0 alpha. 0 and alpha when multiplied by your sigma matrix will become 0. Once it is 0, when it is multiplied by U matrix, it will remain 0. So, V2 bar is going to define your null space. Okay. And if you look at U1 bar and U2 bar, U1 bar will define your image space. Okay. If sigma 2 was also non-zero, then your entire space, 2-dimensional space, is going to be image space, and null space is going to be just the origin. Okay. If you look at this particular case, okay, irrespective of whether sigma 1 and sigma 2 are 0 or non-zero, U3 bar will definitely be one of the basis vectors of the null space. It's a 3-dimensional space, at least one dimension is going to be null space. If sigma 2 is 0, then your null space is 2-dimensional. If sigma 2 is non-zero, then this space which is the span of V3 bar is going to be the null space. Okay. And in this case, span of U1 bar and U2 bar at most can be the image space, not the entire 3-dimensional space. Okay. Again, those are the concepts that we talked about last week. Okay. And then we talked about eigenvalue decomposition. Any matrix, here I have represented as L, any matrix L can be represented as V lambda V inverse. Okay. If lambdas are unique and real, then lambda is going to be equal to lambda 1, lambda 2 and so on up to lambda n diagonal. Okay. If not, if let us say we have lambda 1, lambda 3, lambda 4, lambda 5, then how your lambda matrix is going to look like? Lambda 1, lambda 3, lambda 4, lambda 5. This guy is going to be 1, 0, rest everything is 0. Okay. This has the Jordan structure. Okay. This is called diagonal decomposition, this is called Jordan decomposition. Okay. Commonly both things together we will just call it eigenvalue decomposition. Okay. So, that is about the linear algebra part. Then we talked about, or the first lecture of last week we talked about MPC. I am sorry, I mean I make the slides on Mac, so the fonts are slightly different. So, that is why these things do not line up very well. But anyway, MPC refers to a class of algorithm that utilize an explicit process model to compute a manipulated variable profile that will optimize a performance objective that is predicted over a future time interval subject to constraints. So, the key points is explicit process model, it is optimization based, it is based on prediction of future trajectory, and the optimization is done subject to process and input constraints. Okay. So, that is about MPC. This week and next week we are primarily going to focus on the process model part and a little bit on the future prediction part. So, most of the time we will spend on process model, we will spend a little bit of time on how to use the model for MPC relevant prediction. What I mean by that is that we want our predictions to be in a particular form, so that it is conducive to be used in MPC. Okay. We are going to restrict ourselves for the next 10 weeks to linear systems only. Last week or maybe in between once or twice I might extend it to non-linear systems, but mostly we are going to talk about linear systems only. Okay. And then we talked about, recapped the model terminologies. Okay. Inputs are basically variables that change or that has have what is known as a causal effect on the overall process. That means, if you change the variables or if those variables change, then the process behavior changes. Okay. Inputs are the things that you usually have the ability to change, and those are called manipulated variables. And the things that change on their own, you may have an ability to change, but you are not using that ability to change, those would be disturbance. For example, if you talk about a reactor, the inlet temperature in the reactor, you have the ability to change it, just that for a lot of processes you will just take whatever is there in the tank. Morning time the tank might be at 25 degrees Celsius, afternoon time it might be at 35 degrees Celsius. So, that particular value changes, but it is an input because you do not change it, it is changing on its own, it is called disturbances. Manipulated variables are the ones that you change on your own. Okay. I will use U to represent manipulated variables, D to represent disturbances. Okay. Outputs are the variables that either you can measure or the variables or the variables that you are interested in, okay, which respond due to the changes in your inputs. Okay. So, these would be controlled variables and measured variables. The outputs we will represent as Y. Okay. Much later in the course we will come across cases where we will distinguish between measured and controlled variables, in which case I will represent them as Ym and Yc. Okay. States represent internal dynamical conditions of a system and we will represent them by X. Okay. Very important, the model states need not correspond to any physical quantity, they might simply be fitted to the data. Okay. Based on data fitting you might get a model and if you convert it into a state space form, that model will be a state space model, and that state may not have any specific meaning. Likewise, you can do transformation. We talked about linear transformation last week, right? We talked about change of basis and all that. You can do change of basis, and if you do change of basis, your states would be linear combination of what you originally started off with. Okay. So, that is also possible. So, state need not correspond to a physical physical quantity. And then finally, parameters. So, these are properties or design variables that are used to characterize a process. For example, heat transfer coefficient would be one example, the rate constant for a reaction, heat of reaction, specific heat, those are all examples of parameters of the system. Okay. Just a quick recap, this is the way we will write a discrete time state space model. Okay. We will come back to this type of a model later this week and next week, but this is how we write it, x k plus 1 equal to a x k plus b u k and y k equal to c x k, okay, where k equal to is, or k is the time discrete domain. Okay. So, k is nothing but the actual time divided by the sampling time. Okay. So, let us say our sampling time is we sample once every 2 seconds, then at t equal to 0 k is 0, t equal to 2 k is 1, t equal to 4 k is 2, so on and so forth. Yeah, you had a question? Yeah. So, often you would have seen models of this type. We are going to assume the models to be causal, which basically means you will have an input, not immediately, but at least a very delta time step into the future. Okay. So, let us say you change your inlet flow rate, okay, your system does not respond immediately. Okay. Even if let us say you are talking about transfer of light, right, the light will take fraction of a second, it will take a nanosecond or maybe even femtosecond to come from there to here, it still takes that femtosecond. So, which means when the y is measured or when the x has happened, right at that time whatever u change has happened, x has not got an opportunity to see, it would have seen maybe a femtosecond later, but in a discrete time context it will only come after some amount of time. Okay. And how much that time is? If there is no time delay, then exactly one sampling interval, if there is time delay, then multiple sampling intervals. Okay. So, that is the reason why we do not have the d term over there, and people who are not exposed to state space models, this is the model that you would want to look at. If you go to MATLAB, the MATLAB will also have the d term, all you need to do is make d equal to 0. Okay. And this is what we are going to deal with in this particular weeks, is the step response model and how to get step response model. This is the input u and this is the output y. Okay. And because step response models are linear, we assume that superposition principle works. Okay. And because the superposition principle works, you get a structure of this type. You are splitting the effect of current input move, next input move, next input move, and so on and so forth. You can do that because it is a linear system. Okay. How to get to this and all that we are going to cover in the next couple of days.